For the longest time, I believed I had left it all behind. Nearly a decade had passed, each day a quiet punishment, a constant reminder of what I had done. Every morning brought the same weight, the choices I made, the pain I caused, and the man I lost because of it. For 8 years, I convinced myself that chapter was closed forever. Then, one ordinary evening, everything changed. I was stepping out of my office building, prepared to head home, when I saw him. He stood quietly near the curb, hands buried in his coat pockets, eyes locked on me with an intensity that sent a chill straight through me. Sterling. It was like seeing a ghost pulled straight from the past. I stopped in my tracks. My breath caught, my heart pounding in my chest like it used to when I'd catch his eye across a busy room. But his gaze this time was unfamiliar, no hint of tenderness, no affection. Just something distant. Cold. I thought maybe I was hallucinating, the stress of the day catching up to me. But even when I blinked, he remained there, older, leaner, and somehow harder to recognize, though I knew without a doubt it was him. My fingers clutched the strap of my purse tightly, slowly losing sensation. Why now? Why after all these years? He had vanished without warning 8 years ago. No messages. No legal papers. Nothing. One day we were together, married and still hopeful. The next, he was gone. And deep down, I understood why. I had shattered our bond in an unforgivable way. He never looked back. And now, like a sudden storm, he was here again, unannounced and uninvited. He stepped forward, and I couldn't move. Every muscle in my body felt frozen. I wanted to speak, to ask what he was doing here, where he'd been all these years. But no words formed. Then he said my name, Maeve. That was all. His tone was emotionless, flat. Just my name, like it held no meaning anymore. And that cut deeper than I could have imagined. I had played this reunion in my head so many times. I'd pictured what I'd say, how I'd cry, how I'd fall apart in front of him. But none of those rehearsals prepared me for this reality. There he was, familiar yet unreachable, and I felt like I was unraveling. My instinct was to retreat, not literally run, but emotionally back away as I always had. To avoid, deny, hide behind indifference. But something in his stare made it clear, hiding was no longer an option. He didn't come for closure. And he certainly didn't come for me. I forced down the dryness in my throat and whispered his name, Sterling. The sound felt foreign in my mouth, like it no longer belonged to me. I asked the only thing that came to mind, where have you been all this time? His face remained unreadable. Those eyes that used to see me now looked past me. Does it matter? He asked. The words hit like a blow. To him, maybe it didn't matter. But to me, it was everything. I had lived for years under the shadow of remorse, telling myself he had moved on, rebuilt his life, perhaps even found someone else. I accepted it because I thought that's what I deserved. But now, just being in his presence reopened all the wounds I had spent so long trying to mend. My voice trembled as I asked, why now? He exhaled slowly, his expression unreadable. I didn't come back for you, Maeve. His response was sharp, even though it wasn't shouted. He may as well have screamed it. I was no longer part of his story. Just a regrettable chapter. I nodded, my posture stiff, pretending it didn't cut me to the core. Then why are you here? I asked. For the first time, his composure cracked, just for a second. I saw a flicker of uncertainty cross his face. It vanished quickly, but I caught it. He glanced beyond me, toward the entrance of the office building, and suddenly my stomach tightened. Was this somehow about David? The idea made me feel sick. Sterling had never been someone who sought vengeance. But if he had waited all these years to confront me because of David, to remind me of my worst mistakes, I wasn't sure I could endure that. I stepped forward, heart racing. Sterling, if this is about what happened back then, if you're here because... It's not about that, he interrupted, his tone clipped and irritated. Not everything is about your choices, Maeve. His words were quiet but cut like glass. I shrank under the weight of them, reminded once again of the woman I used to be, impulsive, thoughtless, the one who ruined everything. Sterling checked his watch, clearly impatient, clearly detached. Finally, he said, I need to talk to you. But not here. Somewhere private. I hesitated. Curiosity and fear warred within me. Part of me desperately wanted to understand why he had returned, what he'd been doing all this time. But another part, the one that had fought to stay afloat without him, was afraid of what I might hear. Still, I found myself nodding. Okay, I said softly, unsure what I was agreeing to. Maybe I just needed to believe there was something left worth salvaging. Maybe I wanted to know I still mattered, even if just a little. As I followed him toward his car, one thought echoed endlessly in my mind. What if this meeting wasn't only about the past? What if this was about something far more serious? Sitting in Sterling's car felt surreal. The aroma of leather mixed with a faint, unfamiliar scent filled my lungs as I shifted uncomfortably in the passenger seat. He hadn't uttered a word since we left the building where I worked. His hands were clamped tightly around the steering wheel, his jaw locked with tension. I wanted to speak, to say anything at all that might break the suffocating silence, but the right words wouldn't come. It had been 8 long years. 8 years since I had last been this close to him. Now we were confined to a small space, filled with years of words left unsaid. He eventually turned off into a quiet lot, one of those hidden corners people used when they wanted solitude, away from the city's constant noise. The irony struck me hard. This was something we used to do back when we were still happy, finding out-of-the-way spots just to sit together, talk, and share silence that once felt warm. But this wasn't that. The connection was gone. No shared smiles or private jokes lingered between us now. Only silence and distance. Sterling turned off the engine but remained motionless. His fingers drummed a soft, steady beat on the wheel, his face unreadable. After what felt like ages, he finally looked at me. "I need you to listen." I nodded slowly, heart pounding. He took a long breath, as if measuring each syllable before it left his mouth. "I'm not here to rehash the past. I'm not trying to guilt you or dissect what went wrong between us." Though his tone was even, it carried a certain tension, a hint of something deeper he wasn't saying yet. "I've moved forward, Maeve. My life is different now. But there's one thing I have to understand, and I don't have time to dance around it." His words hit me with unexpected weight, but I kept my attention on him. "What is it?" I asked. His eyes locked onto mine, and in them, for the first time that night, I saw a kind of urgency, not rage or bitterness, but something much more pressing. "Did you ever have a child?" The air left my lungs. Of all the possibilities I had imagined, that question had never crossed my mind. My thoughts raced, chest tightening with confusion. Why would he ask something like that? Why now? I forced out a quiet response. "No, I didn't." A flicker of something passed across his face, relief. He studied me closely, as if trying to catch even the smallest false note. But I was telling the truth. There had never been a child. He leaned back in his seat, exhaling through his nose. For the first time since we met again, he appeared somewhat at ease. But that only deepened my confusion. "Then why would you even ask that?" I pressed, finding strength in my voice. He paused before answering, then reached into his jacket and pulled out a piece of folded paper. He placed it between us on the dashboard. "Read it." With trembling fingers, I unfolded the note. My eyes scanned the neatly typed words, and my stomach dropped. No name, no signature, just a single, jarring message. "You deserve to know the truth. She kept it from you. There was a child, and he might be yours." The air thickened, wrapping around me like a vice. My hands began to shake as I read the words again, hoping I had somehow misunderstood. But the message remained unchanged. I looked at Sterling, my throat dry. "Sterling, I promise you, there was never." His voice interrupted, low but firm. "Then who sent this to me?" He wasn't angry, but the calm in his voice felt like a dam barely holding back a flood. His composure was unraveling, piece by piece. And why now? I had no explanations. I wanted desperately to believe this was some kind of mistake, a misunderstanding blown out of proportion. But deep inside, I knew better. Someone was unearthing what we had buried. Someone wanted him back in this story. And I had no idea who or why. I held the letter tightly, rereading it as though repetition might rewrite reality. But nothing changed. The message remained. Someone believed Sterling had a child. And worse, they thought it was his. It felt like a weight dropped onto my chest, pressing the air out of my lungs. "This isn't real," I managed to say, my voice fragile. "I never had a child, Sterling. I would never." I stopped. I knew my words might carry no weight with him anymore. I had once broken his trust, and that didn't just disappear. He didn't yell. He didn't lash out. Instead, he looked at me with those steady, unreadable eyes, colder than I remembered, like he was weighing every piece of me, trying to decide if I was worth believing. His silence hit harder than any accusation. I would have preferred a confrontation, shouting, something. Anything but this eerie calm. He drummed his fingers against the dashboard again. "Then why would someone send me this?" I shook my head, brain scrambling for answers. "I don't know." "You're sure?" His voice had sharpened, slicing through the silence. "Yes," I said, my grip on the letter tightening. "Sterling, I never." "Stop saying my name like that," he snapped, his jaw tightening. "Like we're still what we used to be." His words cut deep, but I didn't let it show. I bit my lip, trying to stay composed. I don't know who sent this or for what reason, but I swear to you, there was never a child. For the first time, his expression faltered. There was a brief flicker. Was it relief? Maybe uncertainty. I couldn't quite figure it out. He let out a slow breath through his nose, leaned back into the seat, and stared at the car's ceiling. Silence settled between us like a fog, heavy and charged with something unfinished. A part of me wanted to ask 100 questions. Where had he been all this time? What made him return? Whether he had let go of the past, and if he resented me now. But none of that felt as important as the larger question hovering over us. Eventually, he broke the silence. His voice was softer now, reflective. He said he had spent 8 years believing he had left everything behind, convinced there was nothing left for him here. But then this letter arrived, and with it, a new doubt crept in. Was there something he had missed? Something about me, about us? His words drifted off as he shook his head, unable to say more. I could feel the unspoken weight behind his silence. If there was even the smallest chance this letter held the truth, then everything would shift, for him, and for me. Who would even do this? I murmured, more to myself than to him. Sterling rubbed a hand down his face, exhaling hard. I don't know, he said, but I'm going to find out. There was a quiet conviction in his tone, a sense of resolve that chilled me. He wasn't going to drop this. And that realization brought something terrifying into focus. Whoever had gone to the trouble of bringing Sterling back into my life wasn't just targeting him. I was part of it, too. And whoever was behind the letter. They weren't finished. The air inside the car felt like it was closing in, thick and suffocating. My thoughts raced. This day was supposed to be routine. Just another evening filled with work and the familiar dull ache of pretending I was okay with the path my life had taken. But now I was sitting next to the man I once promised to love forever, holding a letter that threatened to unravel everything I'd built since. Sterling sat still, one hand resting loosely on the steering wheel, his gaze locked on the windshield like he was seeing memories play out in front of him. I wanted to speak, to break the silence, but my mouth was dry. The intensity of this moment, of his presence, was almost too much to bear. Then he said something that brought it all back into sharp focus. If this is a lie, he said, then someone made sure I saw it for a reason. His voice was caught somewhere between calm and uneasy, the kind of tone that comes from being cornered and unsure of what's next. I swallowed, trying to process it all. It doesn't make sense, I muttered. Why would anyone want to do this? I stopped myself as my mind began connecting dots I didn't want to see. Sterling turned slightly, his eyes searching mine. You're thinking what I'm thinking, aren't you? He asked. I didn't respond right away. I let the question linger, the possibilities unfolding in my mind. There weren't many people who would stand to gain from stirring all of this up. Then one name surfaced. David. My old boss. The one who came between me and my marriage. The man who made promises he never intended to keep, only to leave me with nothing but a trail of regret. Could he really be the one behind this? I shook my head. That didn't make sense. David had long since moved on, got remarried, started a family. He had no reason to come back into my life, not like this. Sterling gave a slight scoff. And you think that means he wouldn't take pleasure in ruining your life for sport? I hated that I couldn't deny the possibility. David had always been manipulative and self-serving, but something like this seemed excessive, even for him. Or maybe I just didn't want to believe he was capable of that level of cruelty. Who else then? Sterling pressed. Who else would have a reason to get under my skin now? I shook my head again. No one, I said with certainty. I had spent years trying to disappear, keeping my life as quiet and uneventful as possible. There was no one left who'd want to mess with me, or at least, no one I could think of. Sterling's sigh was sharp and decisive. Then there's someone else involved. Someone we haven't seen yet. The idea sent a shiver through me. Whoever it was had managed to track him down, deliver that letter, and make sure it landed in his hands. They knew exactly what kind of chaos it would cause, which meant this wasn't over. I turned to him, my pulse racing. What do we do now? I asked. He didn't speak right away. He simply pulled out his phone, stared at it for a few seconds, and finally said, We start asking questions. His words sent another wave of unease through me. Because this wasn't just about unraveling a mystery. It was about discovering who was keeping tabs on us, and what they wanted. I didn't sleep that night. Even after Sterling had driven off, and I'd locked the door behind me and turned off every light, I lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, my thoughts a tangled mess. The letter sat on the nightstand beside me, neatly folded, belying the chaos it had caused. And yet, it was the most disturbing thing I'd ever come across. And now, I couldn't stop thinking about it. Someone had deliberately gone to great lengths to locate him and pull him back into my world after 8 long years. But why? To stir trouble? To reopen old wounds? For him or for me? The question refused to let go, pressing harder every time I tried to ignore it. Dawn came far too quickly, and with it, sunlight spilled through my blinds, leaving no more room for shadows to hide in. I felt weighed down, utterly exhausted, but I dragged myself out of bed. I'd spent years reconstructing my life, one shattered piece at a time, and I wasn't about to let a mysterious letter shatter all that progress. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But the moment I stepped outside, I saw him. Sterling stood by his car, arms folded, his eyes locked on mine like he'd been there all night. Just the sight of him made my stomach tighten. I paused, heart thudding, then slowly walked toward him. "You could have picked up the phone," I said, trying to sound unfazed, pretending like none of this felt completely surreal. "You wouldn't have picked up," he answered. He wasn't wrong. I looked away, hugging my arms against the brisk morning air. "Why are you here?" He didn't reply right away. His gaze searched mine, and after a long pause, he finally spoke. "You said David wouldn't have sent that letter, that he had no reason to get involved again." I gave a slight nod, though now I was second-guessing everything I thought I knew. "Then there's only one other explanation." His voice was calm, but something in his tone hinted at danger beneath the surface. "Someone believes they know something we don't. Someone wants us to doubt everything." I swallowed, my throat tight. "Sterling, if you're implying." "I'm not implying. I'm telling you." He stepped closer, eyes locked onto mine. "I'm going to find out who sent that letter. But I need you to be completely honest with me, Maeve." His words hit me hard, my pulse quickening in response. "I am telling the truth." "Then tell me," he said, voice quieter but more intense. "Is there anyone from your past who might lie about something like this? Someone who would manipulate you? Someone who'd go to extremes just to see you unravel?" My lips parted, ready to deny it. But no sound came. Because deep down, a name had already surfaced, one I hadn't thought about in years. And the mere thought of it made me feel sick. If I was right, if she had returned after all this time, then that letter was only the beginning. And I wasn't ready for whatever followed. Sterling's question still hung between us, heavy and inescapable. Could someone from my past want to pull the strings, write that letter, dig up what should have stayed buried, and make me relive the worst decision I ever made? Yes, but saying the name aloud would make it real. And I wasn't ready to face that truth. Turning away from him, I ran my fingers through my hair and said, "I don't know." It wasn't the truth, but it was the only answer I could manage right then. Sterling sighed softly behind me. "Maeve." There it was again. That way he said my name like it belonged to someone else entirely, someone he used to know but couldn't quite recognize anymore. "You've never been good at lying." I exhaled a shaky breath and tightened my grip on my bag strap, trying to keep myself grounded. "It's not that simple," I murmured. "Nothing ever is." His voice was calmer now, less confrontational, but the tension hadn't gone anywhere. "Just tell me. Who came to mind?" I hesitated again, but the longer I stayed silent, the more the name solidified in my head, like something I had tried desperately to forget, but that had never truly left me. Celeste. I closed my eyes as a flood of memories surged forward, too fast to stop. She had once been the person closest to me, before David, before the betrayal, before everything spiraled. We had been inseparable, the kind of friends who knew each other better than anyone else ever could. But when the truth surfaced, she had been the first to turn away. I could still see her face the moment she found out, full of judgment, disappointment, maybe even a trace of satisfaction. She was the one who had told Sterling. I never figured out exactly how she learned what had happened, but she had. And instead of confronting me, she had gone directly to him, delivering the final blow to our marriage with brutal precision. After that, she vanished. I hadn't spoken to her or seen her since the night Sterling walked away. I slowly turned back to him, voice barely audible. "Celeste." Sterling's eyes narrowed slightly, as if the name caught him off guard. "Your friend." "She used to be," I corrected. A silence stretched between us, thick with unresolved history. Then Sterling leaned back against his car again, arms crossed. "Tell me everything." Again, I paused. The last thing I wanted was to drag myself back through the past. But his expression made it clear. He wasn't going to let this go. I didn't have a choice anymore. So I told him. I spoke about the years of friendship, how Celeste had once been the one person I trusted most, and how things began to shift after David entered the picture. Celeste had known something was wrong even before I could bring myself to admit it. I explained how she had started asking more questions, how my excuses no longer convinced her, and how she began to withdraw, becoming colder and more distant with each passing day. Then, I recounted the night when everything came crashing down. I still had no idea how she uncovered the truth, I confessed, but she had. And instead of confronting me, she had gone directly to Sterling. Sterling's jaw tensed, but he remained silent. I released a shaky breath. That night was the last time I saw her. The silence between us grew heavier. Then, finally, Sterling broke it. "She's back," he said. I froze, my breath catching in my throat. "What do you mean?" He reached into his pocket, pulled out his phone, and after a few taps, held the screen out toward me. My stomach turned. It was a social media post, an image of a coffee shop that looked simple and ordinary. But the caption beneath it sent a chill through me, back where it all started. "Some ghosts don't stay buried forever." My heart raced as I stared at the screen. The timestamp read last night. She was here, in this city, walking the same streets I had grown to call home again. The life I had carefully pieced back together was suddenly unraveling. And knowing Celeste, she hadn't returned without a purpose. "She sent the letter," I murmured, my voice dry and cracked. Sterling didn't respond, but he didn't need to. The truth was plain between us now. Celeste wasn't finished with me. For the first time in 8 years, it felt like my past had come back to drag me under, threatening to drown me. The knowledge that Celeste had returned sent a wave of unease through my entire body. But I had run for far too long. I wasn't going to do that anymore. Sterling and I sat quietly in his car, the weight of the moment settling over us. Celeste had been gone for so long. Now, she was back, stirring up old memories and casting shadows over the life I'd fought to reclaim. But for what reason? Was it vengeance? Closure? Or something even deeper? An attempt to bring justice in her own way? I took a deep breath and tried to steady the storm inside me. "What do we do now?" He looked at me intently for a long moment before answering. "We find out what she really wants." I nodded, clutching my bag as though it could keep me grounded. "Then let's go." We found her in the place I feared she'd be, the very coffee shop from the photo. But it wasn't just any place. This cafe held memories of happier times, when Sterling and I had spent countless afternoons there, back when love still felt safe, and I believed I was worthy of it. Now, Celeste was here. She sat at a corner table, a cup of steaming coffee in her hands, her face unreadable. The moment she spotted us, a faint smirk tugged at her lips, as if she'd been expecting this exact encounter. "Well," she said, leaning back slightly, "you took your time." I remained standing. My body was too tense to sit. My heart was pounding, my thoughts racing. "Why are you here, Celeste?" She tilted her head with feigned innocence. "Just wanted to check in, see how life's been treating you, Maeve. It's been, what, 8 years?" Sterling slid into the seat across from her, his face impossible to read. "Cut the act. You sent the letter." Celeste gave a small sigh and stirred her coffee slowly. "Maybe I did. Maybe I didn't." A surge of anger welled up inside me. "What do you want?" Her eyes met mine, and for a fleeting moment, I saw something unexpected, something softer. "Regret. Maybe even sorrow." "I wanted you to face what happened," she said in a low voice. "Not just with Sterling, but with yourself. You've been pretending all this time, but you never really let go, did you?" I swallowed, the dryness in my throat making it hard to speak. "That's not for you to decide." Celeste let out a quiet laugh. "Maybe not. But I didn't send that letter to punish you. I sent it because I believed it was the only way to make you stop running, to make you confront your past, and to give you a chance to find out if there was still something worth saving between you two." I was caught off guard, blinking in confusion. "What?" She leaned forward, her tone more serious now. "You made a mistake. A terrible one. But you won't find peace by punishing yourself forever, or pretending like none of it ever happened. I sent the letter so you'd finally face Sterling, to see if there's anything left here worth salvaging." I glanced over at Sterling. He wasn't looking at her, he was looking at me. And that's when the realization struck me. His return wasn't just about the letter. A part of him must have wanted to come back. Celeste rose from her seat and slung her bag over one shoulder. That's all I had to say. What happens next is up to you two. And just like that, she walked away, leaving us behind in the quiet aftermath. Sterling and I remained there in silence as time seemed to pause around us. Eventually, I managed to speak. Do you think she's right? He rubbed the back of his neck, sighing. I don't know. But if I didn't care at all, I wouldn't have come. My eyes stung with tears I refused to let fall. I'm not asking you to forgive me. He looked at me steadily, then shook his head. It's not about forgiveness, Maeve. It's about where we go from here. A spark of hope stirred in my chest, small, delicate, but alive. For the first time in 8 years, I didn't feel imprisoned by my past. Maybe we couldn't fix everything overnight. Maybe we never would. But sitting there, no longer strangers burdened by shared history, I finally understood something. I was no longer by myself. And perhaps, just perhaps, this marked the start of something entirely new.